Today marks the International Day for Solidarity with detained and missing staff members. It's usually a celebration that obviously came from the UN realizing that some integral staff were detained or missing and how that had affected its own work. And subsequently, you've seen that journalists themselves have either been detained or just been abducted, just like the case of former Punch correspondent, Mr. Segun Olatunji. I know you've had some bits of experience yourself, but this is 2024. To what extent do you think that journalists and those who are involved in civil society work remain at risk of either being detained or declared missing because of the kind of work that they do?
Well, we do say that journalism comes with occupational hazard, but this occupational hazard has actually been made much more hazardous by various forces that regularly threaten press freedom and violate the rights of individual journalists. To that extent, journalists are constantly exposed to danger, and not just journalists, other media professionals as well, who may not be journalists but work in the media as producers, as presenters. And I feel that we're in this situation because there is increasing intolerance of what you might call critical journalism or even investigative journalism or ordinary criticism, so that anytime anybody in authority feels offended by a statement, a post on social media, or even a report by a newspaper, the next thing they do is to go after those journalists and grab him or her, throw him or her into detention without following the due process of law, which requires, in the case of Nigeria, that somebody cannot be detained for more than 24 hours without being charged to court. That has been the problem. That is what we are a country with respect to the former Punch journalist who is still being detained, who actually was abducted. Before then, we had the situation where a reporter with Wiki Times in Bauchi was picked up and just locked up by the police. It later turned out that it was a senator who filed a complaint with the police because he believed that he had been defamed in a report. But if you are defamed, you are free to go to court to sue. This guy was held for almost 2, 3, 4 days until he was released. So when it comes to missing staff, problems with staff of organizations, I think that for the media, it is a major issue, and on an occasion like this, we need to talk about the level of impunity with which these things happen.
I know you've had your own experiences.
Yes.
I'd like you to share that some bit of experience that you've had and how you're taking precautions now. Or basically how that has impacted on your work.
Well, it's impacted because the truth is you do this work and you just keep feeling that somebody out there is watching over you. Because one of the things they also do to media professionals is surveillance. There's surveillance. They could tap your phone. They could follow you. In my own case, each time I traveled out of the country, I noticed that I will be subjected to all kinds of questioning by the security officials at the airport. Almost, missing my flight on about 2 or 3 occasions. And then I went to the Gambia for a training for journalists on conflict-sensitive reporting, and I returned. And the next thing was after I had submitted my passport for stamping, I was asked to follow up the line and then asked to, move to the DSS office. Effectively, get detained at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport. Of course, at that stage, I could no longer take it. So I made a post on Facebook and it became a big problem. And what happened, the DSS later said it was because I was on a watch list.
Yes.
What watch list? I mean, I never knew. So it was only when a delegation of the International Press Institute, Nigerian chapter, whose president is Muskili Mojib, had a conversation with DSS that they now said my name had been removed, from the watch list. And I've been that watch list for almost 30, to 40 years, because it started with my student journalism days, and then I became a journalist, and they have a reason. So we can assume that as many journalists as we could imagine are on the watch list of either the National Intelligence Agency, the DSS, or any other arm of government. This in itself, is a threat, and it creates fear. Journalists sometimes engage, in self-censorship, because you look at the implications, particularly when we have impunity for these crimes against journalists. And that is why recently we celebrated a court ruling based on a case filed by the Media Rights Agenda, where the judge ordered that investigation into cases of killed or missing or murdered journalists should be reopened. Hope that that will be done, because it then gives those who are working some hope that at least if anything happens, it will not be, their efforts will not be in vain.
This will bring me to the question of, we know that the NUJ, which is the umbrella body for journalists, should have its own responsibility of safeguarding the interest of journalists in matters like this. Do you think they are proactive enough? If not, what do you think they should be doing?
Well, I think the NUJ has, we can't say they've really been silent. I know that when journalists are attacked, they speak out. Sometimes they also hold meetings. They meet with the DSS and so on, behind us to intervene. And on occasions, that has actually led to freedom for the journalists. So we cannot say that NUJ has not been doing anything. But I feel that there has to be more, collaboration on the part of, NUJ. We have a coalition of whistleblowers and press freedom defenders, for example, to which NUJ belongs. NUJ needs to play active role in such coalitions. NUJ needs to be part of conversations. One of the things that we in the media development sector and some other media professional bodies are pushing now is that we should have a national policy on the safety of journalists and the press freedom. We would expect the NUJ, the Nigerian Guild of Editors, other umbrella professional bodies to be active participants, to play a vanguard role in those efforts, because they have the membership. They are the umbrella bodies. A lot needs to be done in that regard. I also feel that NUJ should mount the desired pressure for insurance schemes for journalists, particularly those who embark on dangerous assignments. Election reporting, for example, is a dangerous assignment in Nigeria, because each election cycle, security agents, political party thugs, and what you have always have a way to attack journalists. Some journalists who were attacked in the 2023 election have still not seen the injuries. They are still going through some psychosocial trauma. So in that regard, the NUJ, again, we are working with other media development, we need to convince media establishments on the need for insurance cover for journalists to go out there to cover elections because of the potential danger they could be exposed to. So these are the kind of things that I feel that the NUJ could do in addition to what they are doing now.
All right. Just before I let you go, I like to think that you're pretty familiar with Fisayo Oshiombo's latest work on customs.
Customs.
Yes, and it appears that the reaction has been quite lethargic on the part of people. Customs itself, Nigerian Customs Service, is yet to respond. There are a lot of young journalists who are watching and feel that, well, it appears that investigative journalism may be losing its influence on inspiring change in the country. You've been in the profession for a long time. What words do you have for onlookers, for journalists in training, and a lot of people who feel that, investigative journalism may indeed be losing its influence?
Well, my advice would be that they shouldn't be discouraged, and they should be encouraged instead by the works of the likes of Fisayo Oshiombo in exposing, corruption, abuse of power, and the rest of that. You might say that people have been lethargic, but don't forget that what they've also done has gone into record, and you never know how that information would be used in future. And I'm sure that perhaps without also making it public, it's possible that even the Customs Service itself is already looking into this and asking themselves questions as to what do we do to really redeem our image. So the effect of that kind of report may not be that manifest, but we shouldn't assume that nothing is actually happening. Then for investigative journalism, it's also not always about exposing corruption and abuse of power. You could also do investigations around institutions that are functional, that are doing their work the way they should do it. That is why we encourage journalists to make use of the Freedom of Information Act. So we should not always feel that, investigative reporting is about, the negative. It could also be the impactful that people are not, aware of. And that's what I would like to encourage journalists to do. Let's do investigations where we have good stories to tell. Let us also do investigations where we see shortcomings. The essence really is for correction. And I would feel that our institutions where they are exposed like this, instead of them going after the journalists, issuing threats and so on, they should know that at the end of the day, we need good governance for this country to make progress. Because the lack of confidence in governance or government is a major problem. And the younger ones don't feel that, why am I wasting my time pursuing education when I could become rich by any means? After all, those who are there are doing that. So let's keep encouraging ourselves. And for the younger ones, the future of journalism would always lie in, investigation. And these days we do add that it should go along with adequate, fact checking. As much as possible, we should be factually accurate in our report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lanre Arogundade, Executive Director of the International Press Center. Thank you. I hope that some other time we'll be able to have a lengthier,
longer conversation. Yes, I need to run now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.